I am Nick Black. This is Tufi Saliba, the CEO of Hypercycle. We are here to kind of let you know all of the crazy things that have happened in the last few days, not a full week, 6 days since we last chatted. And this is This Week in Hypercycle. Tufi, what's going on?
Well, a lot going on, Nick. As you know, it's super exciting to see a lot of the things moving in so many different directions, and sometimes it's frightening, sometimes it's overall I think I couldn't be more excited to see things are fluctuating, going kind of all directions, but they end up like moving the needle forward and forward. So yeah, I mean, if this is not setting up the start for a huge thing, I don't know what it is, but I think it's exciting to be in the middle of it and at the forefront of it.
Okay, I've got a lot of kind of community related questions, but the one that's come up the most is what's going on with both watches? Are they set to different time zones?
Oh my God, a lot of people ask that. So what happened is that one of the guys that I got connected with, Andrew Huberman, Andrew Huberman, he talks about the whole healthy stuff. And he mentioned somebody, then I started like following, and they started talking about like how important some balance in a lot of the things that we wear and walk and so on and so forth. And for the longest time, I thought that might be something that we should take in consideration. So I thought I'd give it a try myself to see what happens, because throughout all my life, I've never really done it or having. So those two watches, they have the exact same weight. Both of them, they're titanium. One of them is the emergency watch, but you can't find it anymore because it's like you have to kind of get certain registration to put this thing going. And this one just like has the exact same weight, but it's not the emergency watch. But so I thought that I'd try them out and see how they would go. And at the same time, one of my children is left-handed, and he would need to wear a watch in the right hand. And we have this kind of tradition in family when they kind of turn 18, you kind of give them something that you were wearing. So I thought I'd start wearing it now, and by the time he turns 18, I'll have a lot of balance. So it's like so many birds in the same stone. So it's like
I agree, and I've been doing the same thing. I have 2 battle axes.
Okay.
So yeah, because I don't want to just have one on my left side, and then like, oh, but my right arm gets weak because it doesn't have a battle axe. So I carry 2. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's awesome.
Okay. What is going on? What should people expect going into the 15th? Because everybody's very excited about splitting nodes and marrying tokens to nodes, and or pledging them to HyperPG, either tokens or node licenses, or tokens and node licenses. Everybody's quite excited. So kind of what should people expect going into the 15th?
Okay. Well, one thing that we do know that with the code is already running the actual the split on that, and the code went to the audit as well. And if we do get the audit prior to the 15th, we'll let you know, which would be great. I'm really hoping that we would do that, we would get that. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, which is that big thing that we talked about last week, which is the ERC 1155, that's more, we refer to it as the marriage certificate. So when you marry those two, who holds them is that marriage certificate. Why is that so important to people? Because people that when they come to the crypto space, they realize that like, okay, well, one of the benefits that you would get is that you can keep things as liquid as possible, right? As opposed to putting things to be so static, and you have some phenomenal real estate, but you can't sell for the next 10 years, or you have some phenomenal asset in some VC but they won't cash out in 6 years or whatnot. So here we felt that some of the benefits that we're enabling people, given that in any financial engineering, we truly believe that the base has to have something of value. And not only we believe that, especially in Hypercycle, you cannot have anything of value unless you start with that thing of value. And often I talk about it like A multiplied by B multiplied by C and exponentiated into the D. Often those people that they specialize in financial engineering, they give you this entire formula, and by the time you dig down, you find A to be empty, then you end up with an FTX situation or many of those situations you've seen in the past. That doesn't mean that they've done anything bad themselves. They assume that A, it's going to be of value, the guys they're building it. So here, what we have in Hypercycle, and everybody that's been following Hypercycle from the beginning, they know that the one thing that we know with 100% certainty is A is of value. You cannot expect somebody to spend money on AI compute unless they know this thing has value to them. So while that is true, the other elements that people are building will have phenomenal and true value. And one of them is that if, let's say, you have like a license for the software that runs the thing or the actual token, and you marry them together, what do you get? Do you get something that is static? No, you actually get something that is also dynamic, that is also fluid. And this thing that it's called ERC 1155, it's basically an NFT, non-fungible token, a little bit different than ERC 721 in the sense that you can have it built in a way that many people can own it, not only you. That's A. B, you can have it in a way that, like, if this thing is a business that generates revenue, it splits directly to whoever co-own it. Now, why is that extremely important? Because many people, they think it's like, hey, what's in it for me to put hardware into the equation? What's in it for me if if you're putting in a token, you get a piece of that. If you're putting in license, you get a piece of that. If you put a hardware, you also get a piece of that as well. The difference, of course, that the hardware, if you are putting it, you still own the hardware, so you can't get that piece and run away. And then what if you don't continue having the hardware? So it's a continuity that continue giving you that access to that whatever percentage. So that's the code of that, as I said last week, will be ready on the 15th. The audit of that one, I can pretty much guarantee you the audit of that one will not be ready on the 15th, but the audit of the split is likely to be ready before the 15th. So, there's like give and take here. Some things they come in early, some things they come in a little bit late. What other things coming on the 15th? Well, many people are asking, will the tilling be available on the 15th? And we don't have any indication that say that we should not expect it to be ready on 15th. So I think it's looking good on all fronts. And this is here just to kind of rewind a bit. The Ralph situation, that's the friendly client who came in and installed his things on June 20th. So tilling has been running since June 20th. We have been in production since then. But that is more like a friendly instance that they've been running, and they've been like doing all kind of stuff into it, hammering it, doing things that you wouldn't want to do in usual production things.
A true kind of test environment.
Pretty much, it's true test environment. Yeah, it's kind of like as opposed to having like a test net, it's actually mainnet, but mainnet with a very small amount of things that you put in it. So then you feel like it's okay if you were to lose them or whatnot. Not necessarily. So Ralph did not lose anything. Let's put it this way. But what did happen over the course of running those into many different environments, there was a time that some of that tilling stopped and then went back on, which kind of reminds us all that it is not an easy task as much as people would tell you. Even if you were to go to a giant like AWS, they don't give you a guarantee 100%. And that's why they tell you need to have, active. You need to have a lot of things in order to ensure certain operation that is available 100% of the time.
So this was like a liveness or a consistency issue?
Yeah, it was, because the actual heartbeats that they're being sent, there has been evolution of that. And one of the evolution in that development is having multiple servers doing the same things. And one of the servers that is actually doing those, they should not have been configured in a certain way. But anyway, it was configured in a certain way that it's actually trying to do things as if the others, they don't exist, but in reality it should have been doing things. That's been resolved anyway. So point is that on the 15th, we expect anyone who has a software to have that in an environment where it's actually the software itself is running. But if they want to marry it at some point, they're not losing anything. They're actually gaining the ability to have some history with it. And the third thing that is happening on the 15th so far, based on my conversation yesterday with Dr. Yanko, who's heading the development on the hardware, is that we're still expecting that Hyper AI box to come out, which is amazing, because look, we've got 6 of those sent maybe 3 weeks ago to some of our people. And the very first batch in production, we're talking about actual production, part of the 52,384, to actually start going to customers around. And that's a big thing for us to do. And if actually they ship on the 15th and they start sending them, we expect people to turn them on hopefully on October 22nd, which is the 1-year anniversary for Hypercycle. That is beautiful. That's like on the 1-year anniversary, we're getting people to have a hardware that is fully configured, has a software. They put it in, they configure the key, and then they can get licenses into it. If they want to get licenses into it, that would be great. So yeah, so that's the latest and greatest on what's happening on the 15th. And like I said, if you were to, those 3 things, I'm pretty sure they're all coming. Especially the first one, I'm the most sure about. The last one, if that hardware slips, I'll let you know. But so far, I don't see any indication that it should slip. My conversation yesterday with the CEO of that company seems to reassure that that's actually happening, and that is great. They're finalizing and fine-tuning some of the details, and we should be in good shape that we should start shipping that product on the 15th.
A lot of people, Tufi, they're kind of curious. So once the nodes are splittable and they can get, somebody that might have a bundle of 8 nodes versus 126 or 256 or 128, whatever, they want to grab those nodes and they're curious, like, okay, what do I have to do once I get those nodes to actually start accruing, my reputation for tilling? And I guess that's going to occur at hyperpg.io. Is that right?
Correct. You'll be able to go down to the smallest level. Basically, you can even go to the one single node and get it to be married to 1024 tokens, right? So having this ability, that means you're able to run it on one small computer, or having it on Hyper AI box, or having any level, and any binary level above that, you can go to the 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, or whatnot. So yeah, that's basically splitting that to that level. I just would like to remind you that the code to do that has always been ready for the last 11 months and 3 weeks, but this time is on ETH, not ADA, and it's an audited code that is ready. So it's people, they like the audited code because often the audit companies, they get certified, get certain insurance, and when you go through that process, like an actual insurance company is not going to come and say like, hey, I'm going to insure you for $2 million if they only do it like if people, they know their stuff and they're able to do that. So yeah, basically if you have a master node, and having the ability to have that master node split into 512 and transmitting it on its own is a great thing. Having the ability to marry it is another phenomenal thing. So those are abilities that will be there. The one part that I talked about, the ERC 1155, that will be there but not necessarily audited, is the 1155. So when you marry them, you automatically get that 1155. So that this ERC 1155 is not a token that somebody mints or whatnot. It can mint unlimited amount. This is a result of the marriage of those two. That's the only way that this thing can come to exist. That's very powerful. It's like you kind of really need to have all of this provenance work together very nicely in order to mint that ERC 1155. This single ERC 1155, if it is at the masternode level, you're talking about like a currently close to $1 million business, like on its own. So that part you would need to wait for the audit before we kind of give it to people. But the first part is the code is ready, the audit's been sent, so we're likely to get it even before the 15th.
So another question that I get a lot is, when might people be able to pledge to HyperPG their licenses? Let's say I have a bundle of 8 licenses or 32 or whatever, and I just decide, you know what, I'm not going to put the tokens. I just want to lend those either to HyperPG. When might that be possible?
Yeah, the pool for the actual licenses is part of that ERC 1155 actually, because the ERC 1155, how we said in order to create that you would need to have so many, right? So let's say you need to have, if you're creating it at the very bottom level, it's easy peasy. You can take one and put it there and create it and then marry it to the, but maybe you don't want to do that because then you have to worry for one at a time and see if it actually got married to hardware and who's managing that. Not a lot of people are going to manage like a single node, but if you say 512, people, they pay attention. They say it's like, we have one person who is, let's say, dedicated, who's managing, let's say, 7 of those master nodes, and it's all they do day in, day out. If that's the case, then you feel like maybe you want to partake into this, and you put your node licenses as part of that, and then the more that pool has node licenses being partake into it, the more it has, let's say, tokens being part into it. It marries all of them together, so you become part of that beneficiary who also wants to be put part of the pool, like somebody who provides the hardware. They take a piece of that. If that person, it's even we went to the details below that it's like If the person is providing the hardware, they need to convince someone who has a location. Let me put my hardware into there. Like, of course, you might figure out like a human way of saying, like, I'll put my hardware there, give me the location, I'll rent it from you. And of course, you can always do the old way. But the new method that we enabled that is that you might put your hardware in a physical location that the physical location person might not charge you anything whatsoever if they take piece of that as well, piece of that pie. That's beautiful, right? Because you feel like, yeah, I have the hardware. I don't really need to be dealing with, people trying to kind of take care of like my hardware, whatnot. Is there an automated way to do that? There is that automated way. If folks, they prefer not to have the automated way, they want to go the old way where they feel like it's my hardware, I'm putting it at, Jack's location or John's location, whatnot. I want to make sure that they're accountable for it. I want to have it the old way. Of course, then the combination of hardware and location can give close to perhaps like 40% of that revenue. It's huge, right? So it's because they're both providing things that they are necessary for that compute to run. Remember, the location is not only providing a secure location and internet and all that, they're providing electricity. So the combination of that and hardware, 40 to 50%, is very well deserved. And of course, the code gets big chunk as well, and so on and so forth. So another thing that I've talked about it for the last 3 or 4 times, and I get to reiterate here. One of the things that we introduced with Hypercycle to the machine is that wealth creation that I gave the example, like the coffee shop. This gives an incentive to a lot of people that they want to run the hardware early on to start actually benefiting early on, as opposed to just turn on the hardware without any benefit until the AI compute comes. Because the moment you turn that hardware on, the moment the tilling starts, and the formula of the tilling is relative to the entire network. So so long as you are on a top 10 percentile, you're getting that ratio of 1.26 in a period of 6 months. So if you do quick calculation on that, in about 1 year, that ratio can be about like 1.6. That's huge. That's a multiplier for all the value that you're bringing into the equation. And people, they can compare that to somebody a year from now. If somebody a year from now wants to have the exact same value in that compute world, they need to have 1.6 amount of things that you have brought into the equation. So if you put on, like, let's say between tokens and licenses, let's say $1 million of those, assuming that the actual price of the token is the exact same, everything is the same. A year from now, they need to put $1.6 million worth of those. That's what this means.
It pays to be early in any of these kind of things. So
100%, we're creating wealth here, and we're giving that wealth to the people that are creating it. Like
a lot of people, don't realize that there's I joke about this all the time. You can be really, really good at something. You can be really lucky, which luck is not really strategy, or you can just be first. And oftentimes being first, 90% of the time, being first is the best tactic. And so people were asking, well, why should I start tilling now? Why wouldn't I just wait until compute starts? And that is because you're going to have a huge advantage. You're going to have many months. Even if you started at the end of October or November, you would have December, January, February, March. You'd have 4 months of tilling and reputation built when compute goes live. That's a big advantage over people that are waiting until March to pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nick, being early, on that note, I've been in startups all my life, and I tell you that sometimes folks, they are scared of being early because they think that they are going to come in early and they're going to be the first to kind of like lose on something. But the reality, the way you've kind of stated it, and for me to say that like this is a winner, whoever is going to hear it, it's a subjective thing. Of course, this person is going to say great things about their things, but if you were to look at in general, like the startup stats, like to say the Fenwick, they kind of bring thousands of startups all together, and those that they are being early in something that's actually eventual into the world. It isn't a winner of like 1 out of 10. It's probably like 4 or 5 out of 10. So it's I'm really like saying like guesstimate here, but if somebody wants to track it down and look into some of those stats, they'll be able to get the exact same number. What do we mean by eventual? Like the question that folks that would need to ask themselves, is there going to be enough demand for AI? Well, for the last 11 years, don't take my words. You can look at Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA, for example, and wherever he sourced his information. For the last 11 years, the demand of AI has been exceeding the supply. Now, has the supply been any low? Well, the supply has been exceeding Moore's law by a lot. It's actually 4x per year. I don't know if you remember, Moore's law is like 2x every 18 months. Here we're talking about 4x per year. Not according to me, according to Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA. And I didn't bother to look into the details of where he sources information from, but people can find that online. Jensen is not going to say that unless he's definitely sources information from credible sources. So a supply that grew 4 million times, Nick, in the last 11 years. 4 million times. This is not twice, it's not 3 times. 4 million times. There isn't anything in human history that grew 4 million times in the last 11 years, except the supply of AI. And the demand continues to be higher than that, year after year after year. This is just mind-boggling for people to think about it, that we're living in this day and age. That in the last 11 years, we've noticed 4 million times more supply, and the demand continues to exceed it year after year. And according to PwC, in almost every forecast, that by 2028, the demand of AI is going to continue to exceed the supply. The one thing that I think in their forecast they seem to be missing on is the compounded power of many of those things. But even without compounding things, they're still there to say that the demand is going to continue to exceed the supply until 2028. So for folks that they're setting up AI machines, if they're worried about getting folks to utilize that AI machine, and I think it's not going to be the bottleneck anytime soon. And as a quick reminder for everyone, Hypercycle is not there to compete in the AI space. This is not what we do. We're actually there to enable any AI that exists out there, from one end, to look smarter because it's able to ask others. From another end, makes more money because those that it does ask, it actually has to send them more money. So So that's basically the value that add that we bring in into anything that is AI. We stand behind that value. We're building it phenomenally well with a lot of security. And yeah, of course, folks that are getting into early into this, they're building it with us effectively. That's what's happening. They are actually building this global value with us. This is not something that we're doing it on our own.
So a lot going on, a lot coming up. We're very close to a lot of things, waiting on some code audits to come back. And I would just urge everyone, you want audits, you want clean sheets. This is like, you can sleep at night. There's plenty of unaudited junk out there that's not this. So when there are updates, is there a place people can go for kind of real-time updates? So for instance, we get to the 15th, this, and this, we can do this. This is on hold for audits. Where would people go to get that real-time update?
From our perspective, Hypercycle.ai for sure would give that. And from many of the partners like HyperPG, Hyper Appliance, they're releasing their website for those appliances. So the Hyper AI box is managed by a company called Hyper Appliance. We publicly declare to the world that we are vesting 30% of Hyper Appliance. We're a partner in that company. We're vesting about 45% of HyperPG. So we're also partnered with HyperPG. So there's nothing to hide there. We have vested interest in those companies, and they are building things that they are valuable to our ecosystem. So from Hypercycle.ai, it will always be the things for the Hypercycle company. HyperPG.com has general information about HyperPG. HyperPG.io is where people go for the smart contracts. And Hyper Appliance, they will be releasing a lot of cool things about them. Of course, there will be a lot of cool surprises that will come out of Core Excel, which I'll wait until they kind of manifest themselves. Core Excel, to remind everyone, it's the venture arm of Hypercycle. And instead of calling it Hypercycle Venture, we call it Core Excel, KOR Excel. And the difference about that accelerator that we created, or venture arm, is that it focuses on hardware-only companies. It only invests in hardware-only companies, and it spin-off hardware-only companies. So that way, any software person around the world, if they feel that it would benefit them to have some hardware component into their company, they will reach out to us, and we will actually spin off that other venture on their behalf and help them with that. And that's one of the reasons why I was in Geneva last week, and I can't wait to tell you about that on December 15th. But that's, again, this is more into the future.
Cute little hint, the little nugget just dropped in there.
Right. And it was a very good segue for it, so give me that.
Well, Tufi, you guys have done and still do an amazing job. It's a great community. It's a great project. I know a lot of people are quite excited. We're getting right up to the precipice of a lot of things going live. So I would urge everyone to just pay attention. Go to HyperPG and bang around. Go to hypercycle.ai, and then we will do this again in a few days.
And one last thing I want to say, I do hear everyone saying that our communication hasn't been outstanding, and I agree. We do agree to our weaknesses. We're working on enhancing it. And you and I, Nick, we probably know a little bit more on that end, which I'm not going to disclose it yet publicly, but you're more on the insider. That's why you probably know. But we are working heavily on that, and hopefully we can have some announcement on that over the next week. So then it comes as a sweetener to the 15th, because communication is extremely, extremely important in this this ecosystem, and we're taking it seriously, and we appreciate the feedback we're getting from a lot of people, and we apologize if sometimes we're not very responsive as quickly as we would like to be.
Well, again, thank you for your time. Very excited about everything that's coming. And I look forward to doing this again. Tufi, thank you so much. And
thanks, Nick.
Fingers crossed.
We said we're gonna do it in 6 days. Let's do it next. I'm gonna put on a lot of effort in 6 days.
6 days it is. 6 days.
Because this time we did it in 7 days. Next week we gotta do it in 6 days.
We'll see you next Monday.
Excellent. Look forward to it. Take care. Ciao.
Are you tired of all the uneducated noise you're getting from the droves of YOLO meme coin peddling douchebag gurus out there trying to use you as their exit liquidity? Would you rather learn a competent university-level set of skills that will guide you in managing and investing for the rest of your life? Join us 3 days a week at Digital Investor. Develop your knowledge of game theory, cognitive bias, macroeconomics, monetary theory, investment theory, psychology of the crowds, and more. For more info on Digital Investor and how it can help you, reach out at nickblacknext.com.